She's now bragging about the success of Snow White, which is a movie that's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars, and mainly because of her and because nobody wanted to support her.
Disney is facing intense scrutiny, and this time it's far more than just a few critical headlines. It's a full-blown public relations meltdown. Across the country, independent retailers are pulling Snow White merchandise from their shelves, a clear sign that the backlash is both widespread and serious. But listen to this. It's no longer merely a debate over a beloved fairy tale. The controversy has escalated into a reputational crisis that could have long-term consequences for the entertainment giant. So what ignited this firestorm in the first place?
There are empty theaters all around the country. We are now at a 1 out of 10 on IMDb for the new Snow White, and it couldn't happen to a better person.
Disney set out to modernize Snow White with a bold contemporary vision, but the plan has backfired in spectacular fashion. What was meant to be a fresh take on a beloved classic has instead been slammed for stripping away the very elements that made the original timeless. The dwarfs are gone, the whimsical charm has vanished, and the traditional happily ever after has been scrapped in favor of a more cynical narrative. But it gets worse. The production has descended into chaos, drawing sharp criticism from both longtime fans and industry insiders. At the eye of the storm is Rachel Zegler, the film's lead, whose meteoric rise to fame has turned her into an unexpected lightning rod. Rather than winning over audiences, her involvement has become a punchline among some fans, many of whom accuse her of treating the film like a fashion runway, more interested in modeling costumes than embracing the spirit of the role.
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them.
The online backlash has been swift and absolutely ruthless. Fans and critics alike have slammed the Snow White remake as tone-deaf, lazy, and even downright insulting. Social media has turned into a battleground flooded with memes, parodies, and biting commentary that only amplify the growing outrage. But that's not all. For a company that built its empire on wonder and enchantment, this wave of negativity is more than just bad press. It's a direct hit to Disney's core identity. Many are now questioning whether the studio severely underestimated its audience, mistakenly believing that loyal fans wouldn't notice or care about the drastic changes. The message online is loud and clear. This could go down as one of Disney's most disastrous miscalculations yet, one that might demand a full-scale rebranding effort just to begin repairing the damage.
Don't alienate half of the country when you're putting out a product meant to appeal to all. It's the Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too.
To truly grasp the scale of the backlash, one must first understand the cultural weight of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When it debuted in 1937, it wasn't just another animated feature. It was a groundbreaking achievement that laid the foundation for Disney's global legacy. As the first full-length animated film, it revolutionized the industry and became a beloved classic for generations. Tampering with such an iconic piece of cinema is like altering a cherished family recipe. Every change risks losing the magic that made it special in the first place. But it gets crazier. Instead of honoring the heart and soul of the original, Disney's remake has been widely criticized for doing the opposite. Rather than delivering a thoughtful update, the new version has been described as hollow and disconnected. According to reports from early test screenings, audiences felt the film resembled a disjointed TikTok compilation, more concerned with chasing trends and aesthetics than telling a meaningful or cohesive story.
For every one of the 18 hours I am in the Snow White dress, I expect to get paid. If it's 18 hours, I want 18 hours of pay. I'm sure she got underpaid as a Disney lead actress.
Instead of taking the early warning signs seriously, Disney chose to double down, pouring even more resources into the project in a last-ditch effort to turn things around. Massive investments were funneled into PR campaigns, post-production tweaks, and aggressive marketing strategies, all aimed at salvaging the film's reputation before its release. The reason this is happening. Insiders say Disney operated under the assumption that its brand was invincible, that the iconic logo alone would be enough to carry the film to success, regardless of public skepticism. But that gamble didn't pay off. The internet was relentless. Online communities picked apart every detail, from the wooden performances to the uninspired writing, painting the entire production as cringeworthy and out of touch. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. This fairy tale wasn't bulletproof, it was riddled with holes. The financial fallout from this debacle is nothing short of staggering. Snow White 2025 is now on track to become one of the most expensive flops in Disney's history, with early box office projections in freefall and reports of half-empty theaters across the country. What was once anticipated as a major cinematic event has instead turned into a cautionary tale. Audiences have reportedly walked out of screenings, some comparing the experience to watching a poorly directed student film, or worse, a disjointed art house experiment that completely misses the mark. But it gets worse. On IMDb, the film has plummeted to a shocking 1.6 out of 10, one of the lowest scores ever for a major studio release. Reviewers have skewered the movie for its bizarre direction, lack of narrative coherence, and visuals that feel more like a low-budget Netflix horror than a polished Disney production. Memes have exploded across social media, ridiculing everything from the missing woke dwarfs to the odd, almost filter-like aesthetic of the film. The overwhelming consensus? This isn't just a misstep. It's an expensive mistake with little hope of redemption.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
Critics have torn into the film storyline, calling it a chaotic patchwork of mismatched concepts that never quite come together. At one point, Snow White belts out a pop anthem in a scene that feels ripped from a reality TV talent show. Moments later, she's wandering through a bleak dystopian landscape straight out of a discarded sci-fi screenplay. The result is a jarring tonal roller coaster that leaves audiences confused rather than captivated. But listen to this. In a move that sparked widespread backlash, the iconic prince has been completely removed, replaced with a clumsy empowerment subplot that many argue feels forced and awkwardly shoehorned into the narrative. Instead of uplifting the story, the film's messaging comes across as heavy-handed and overly didactic, drowning out any genuine emotional resonance. Perhaps the most mocked moment of all is the final dance sequence, which features characters awkwardly dressed in all-white outfits, swaying in unison under soft lighting. One baffled audience member summed it up with brutal honesty. "That was 30 seconds I'll never get back." Many now believe Disney has once again ignored the lessons of previous failures, overhauling a beloved classic without fully understanding what made it timeless in the first place.
So she just encapsulates everything that most of us cannot stand about modern day feminism and the left in general, and Hollywood.
At the center of the Snow White controversy is Rachel Zegler, whose comments and public persona have significantly amplified the backlash. Once praised for her breakout musical performances, Zegler has now become one of the most divisive figures tied to the film. Her outspoken criticism of the original Snow White, calling it outdated, and labeling the classic prince character as having stalker vibes, struck a nerve with longtime fans who viewed her remarks as dismissive and disrespectful to the film's legacy. But it gets crazier. Zegler's now infamous comment about deserving to be paid for every hour she spent in the Snow White costume was widely seen as tone-deaf and entitled. The backlash was swift, with one viral fan response summing up the sentiment, "If you hate the role so much, why take it?" Instead of smoothing tensions, her social media activity has only added fuel to the fire. She's been seen retweeting praise from supporters while brushing off critics as simply being stuck in the past. What might have worked as a personal defense has instead come across as antagonistic, alienating a large portion of the audience Disney desperately needs to bring on board. Critics and fans alike have called it a marketing disaster, arguing that Zegler's combative tone and lack of reverence for the source material have only deepened the divide between the film and its intended audience.
Her heroine cannot be in love or be saved by a man, the prince, that she's more focused on becoming the leader she was meant to be, as if women in modern day America must make that choice.
Some observers have suggested that the backlash against Rachel Zegler may be part of a coordinated smear campaign, pointing to the intensity and volume of online criticism. However, many others argue that the controversy is largely self-inflicted, rooted not in conspiracy, but in Zegler's own words and actions. Her dismissive attitude toward fan feedback and her tendency to brush off criticism have only widened the rift, turning her social media presence into a digital battleground. Here's the real issue. While online debates rage over whether the outrage is manufactured or genuine, Disney's PR team is reportedly overwhelmed, struggling to contain what one insider has described as a slow-motion horror movie. Efforts to regain control of the narrative have fallen flat, and the controversy continues to spiral. Regardless of whether the backlash is orchestrated or organic, one fact remains undeniable. Zegler's casting has generated far more controversy than Disney ever anticipated, and it's now threatening to overshadow the film itself.
Be a leader as a female and fall in love and be rescued by a prince. Like, that's incongruous bullshit. That's only the left's version of what it means to be a strong woman or female empowerment.
Beyond the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler, the film itself has come under fire for what many view as an overly heavy-handed approach to political messaging. Instead of thoughtfully weaving modern values into the fabric of the classic tale, the remake is widely seen as a checklist of social justice themes, delivered with all the subtlety of a public service announcement. But that's not all. Critics argue that the film prioritizes empowerment messaging over actual storytelling, resulting in a script that feels more like a lecture than a narrative. Traditional elements, like the iconic Seven Dwarfs, have been removed entirely, further distancing the remake from its beloved source material. The result is a film that has managed to alienate audiences from both sides of the political aisle. Commentators, liberal and conservative alike, have described it as lecture first, entertainment later, highlighting how the movie's didactic tone overshadows any attempt at genuine emotional resonance. Disney's promotional claim that the film celebrates Snow White's timeless bravery has been met with widespread skepticism. For many, the remake doesn't honor the original's enduring spirit. It replaces it with modern ideology at the expense of heart, magic, and the universal charm that made Snow White a classic in the first place.
So, I mean, this woman has clicked every box. And just for cherry on top at the end, she gave an interview last week talking about how they were basically a bunch of white supremacists on the set of West Side Story.
Behind the scenes, Disney is reportedly in full-blown crisis mode. The production budget for Snow White has ballooned to over $250 million, not including marketing costs. And early box office returns are painting a grim picture. Retailers are now labeling Snow White merchandise as toxic inventory, pulling it from shelves amid slumping demand. Meanwhile, investors are losing patience and pressure is mounting on high-profile executives, including CEO Bob Iger, to explain how such a high-stakes project veered so disastrously off course. But it gets even more telling. Inside the company, the film has become a punchline. Staff reportedly refer to the project as Snow Wrong, a nickname that reflects the growing sense of embarrassment and frustration among Disney insiders. Some employees are allegedly updating their resumes, anticipating a wave of internal shakeups as the fallout continues. The broader entertainment industry is watching Disney's misstep with sharp attention. Rival studios are taking notes, not just on the film's failure, but on the deeper implications of mishandling a legacy title. The Snow White disaster has reignited a much-needed conversation about Hollywood's over-reliance on remakes and reboots, especially those that prioritize modern messaging over authentic storytelling. Audiences, increasingly fed up with lazy nostalgia and hollow updates, are sending a clear message. They want originality, creativity, and above all, respect for the classics that shape generations. Disney's misfire may prove to be more than just a box office flop. It could be a turning point in how the industry approaches its most treasured stories.
Disney's Bob Iger says their mission is to entertain, not send messaging as Snow White sales compete for worst performing live-action Disney adaptation ever.
The Snow White remake is shaping up to be one of Disney's most costly and public lessons in what not to do. From start to finish, the project has become a textbook case of how chasing fleeting cultural trends at the expense of storytelling can backfire spectacularly. The overhaul of a cherished fairy tale once intended to modernize and empower instead alienated loyal fans, confused new audiences, and ignited a firestorm of controversy that shows no signs of dying down. But here's the bigger picture. This isn't just a film misstep, it's a cautionary tale for the entire industry. Rachel Zegler's involvement, once seen as a bold casting choice, now serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between public persona and role responsibility. Her comments and conduct, though perhaps well-intentioned, became flashpoints in a larger cultural conversation, highlighting the importance of tone, timing, and audience respect, especially when tied to a legacy property. Behind the scenes, rumors of frantic last-minute edits, marketing overhauls, and even potential legal action to manage the backlash underscore just how dire the situation has become. Meanwhile, Hollywood is watching closely, left to grapple with a pressing question. Will this high-profile flop finally force studios to rethink their approach to remakes, to prioritize substance over slogans and authenticity over algorithms? Or will the cycle of nostalgia-driven reboots continue, unchecked and unchallenged, until audiences stop showing up entirely? One thing is certain, Snow White won't just be remembered for what it was. It will be remembered for what it revealed.